While we're waiting for people to sign on, I just had a little walk before I came into the house, and I picked an apple off the tree, and I thought, well, I could come and I'd like to give you all a fresh apple off our tree, right? So please have this, and you can just scrunch away. It's quite crispy and juicy. So you can, while we're waiting for the other people, don't be embarrassed, just scrunch into it and enjoy the apple. And then we can sort of, once you're kind of settled and well fed, then we can talk a bit. Oh, Kate Willimon is just showing off. Thank you. Slowly people are, why does it take so long for the picture to come up, Stu?
What picture?
Well, there's just like, there's black screens, and then slowly, bit by bit, their pictures are popping up on the screen.
Maybe it's loading, or maybe they just logged on and their camera is activating.
Mhm.
Good morning, Sergeant.
I think so.
Today we have, I'm full on with the screen instead of sideways, because we don't have anyone at the house. And now in retrospect, I'm very glad that we didn't invite those of you that might have come to our house. I'm very happy that we haven't invited you. Since last Sunday, we've had a fairly full week, because this time last week, Mary was still in hospital, and we picked her up, and there was a cyclone warning here, and it said strong winds or something like that between 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. So we were picking her up at 10. And so it wasn't too windy, it was getting breezy, something was brewing. And then at 11 o'clock on the button, quite incredible, right? Suddenly, the wind was just whoosh. And by the time we got home, we had to stop the car a number of times, and Stephen and I had to drag trees off the road in front of the car to be able to get home. And Tina had kindly cooked us a lovely meal, and we were just settling down to have something to, she was just about to serve it, just finishing the last little something or another on the stove when bang, the power went out. And we had no power for 2.5 days, and no water for 2.5 days, and no phone for 2.5 days, while they kind of fixed it. So we had this kind of interesting week of camping out in our house with the with the two burner camp stove going in the garage and carrying pails of water from the standing tap of the big water. All our water here comes from roof water. It's rainwater. So it's collected in a big tank. So we're carrying big pails of water for that. And meanwhile, Mary's zipping around on a kind of a wheelie walker in the house. And we realized that actually we needed to have the house pretty empty. Otherwise there's no room to maneuver the thing around. Right? So actually that was only 1 week ago. And in retrospect, I think it would have been a bit much to aspire to invite everyone to the house today and have lunch together. But hopefully next time we meet, for those of you that are able to come and join us here, this will be possible. So can we just sit for a moment and see if we can feel our togetherness? And when I say that, I'm pointing out that we're all sitting on the same earth. You may feel you're sitting on a floor, but I can assure you that below the floor, there's probably another floor, but eventually you'll get to earth. Okay. And I'm just, I just kind of give a little, could you feel the shake? I mean, not too long ago, we had this colossal explosion, right? Of a volcano went off in Tonga. And Mary and I were at that moment watching some television. And I heard this colossal explosion. And I ran outside expecting to see gigantic plumes of black smoke, and somehow the neighbor's house had blown up. And we found out later that this was actually hearing and feeling the house shook, a volcano blowing up 2,300 kilometers away. Okay. So the thing is that as a meditator, I know you are extremely sensitive. And so therefore, can you feel it? Seriously, right? Just being with our breathing, right? Just seeing if we can invite an opening. As you're sitting, see if you can have a sense of being cradled by the biosphere. Take refuge in wisdom, compassion, and non-clinging engagement. I take refuge in the full richness of here. I take refuge in the ever-present immediacy of now. Truth is all-pervading. It is the suchness of this moment, the thusness that we are. My refuge is to live within the truth. For the sake of all beings, wisdom, compassion, non-clinging awareness. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Stephen, could you try turning this fan off for a moment? It's kind of blowing my eyes out. Yeah, you might have to turn it on again. I'll just. I've titled our sort of series of gatherings this year, Living with Wisdom, Compassion, and Non-Clinging Engagement. And some of you will immediately notice that I've kind of changed a word here. For so many years, we were saying non-clinging awareness. And it's become clear to me that what some people mean by awareness isn't necessarily what I mean by awareness. And so I'm kind of, it's not that it's not non-clinging awareness, but it is to realize that all forms of engagement, physical meetings, mental meetings, so-called collective meetings, individual meetings, engagements, are expressions of awareness in action, different domains and dimensions of awareness in action. Okay? So just to kind of perhaps invite the question of this, what do I actually mean by awareness? Does that mean I am being aware of something? Or is there a broader possibility that's being hinted at with this word? And so I'd like to just say it in a very kind of ordinary way, living with wisdom, compassion, and non-clinging engagement. Okay? And I kind of made a little subtitle, the heart, right, of Dharma from a universal perspective. And I'd like to clarify, maybe today I'm just going to spend the whole time talking about this little kind of title or whatever we want to call it. I mean, when we talk about a universal perspective, sometimes we're talking about a one-size-fits-all situation. You know, it's kind of universal. It's kind of, well, we're just one size fits all. It's stretchy. Yeah, you just buy the socks. You don't buy small, medium, and large. Right? They're just all there. And so we're looking at a universal expression of Dharma is something which will speak to everyone. And in a way, this is true, but I was trying to hint at a possibility that perhaps is broader than that, right? What about the heart of Dharma, right? From the perspective of the entire universe. Right? From a totality perspective, from a wholeness perspective. Okay? And, you know, when I think of Dharma, I frequently find myself picking the word apart these days because I've been, as you know, and many of you too have been, very involved with Buddhist teaching for so many years. It's very, very easy to unawarely, or sometimes unintentionally, or just kind of accidentally slip into the idea that Dharma is Buddhist teaching. Whereas actually and so this is why I find picking the word Dharma apart in a slightly non-traditional way is useful. And I think of Dhar, which is a root of dhareti, which means to hold or support or contain, or right. It's almost like I have to enact this for you to get a sense of it. This is why I kind of wish we were together in the same room, because I'd be able to kind of demonstrate this in a way instead of just talking about this. Okay? Dhar, right? It's like what supports, and ma is mother in so many different languages. Ma, 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 right? And so dharma is that which mothers and supports and contains and nurtures and holds us. We are dharma. This is the living, right? So the heart of this, right? What is the heart? What is the core? What is the juice, right? That supports and sustains and holds you, and this mystery that somehow gave birth to the story that you were once a cell, and that you gestated in the womb of a living creature. While you were doing that, you didn't know you were gestating in the womb of your mother. There's just the universe happening, right? And then you kind of grew up and so on. You've got this kind of story, right? Of this, and here we are, getting gray, right? Getting, I mean, with the exception of Dan. I mean, Dan's the only guy here who's got a beard that's not white. Right? A bunch of old geezers and a bunch of old gals, right? And so we're kind of coming, at this huge journey. Like what is the heart? What on earth is going on? Right? Could we get to the point where we're no longer interested in, you see, you understand Dharma in terms of your kind of conviction and competency in who and what you are. So in other words, if you think of yourself as a thing, separate from other things, then you conceive of Dharma as a kind of arrangement of things in a more congenial, fluid, better functioning way. So we kind of work this way, right? And we see Dharma as like it's something I practice, right? Or it's something I don't live with Dharma. I don't live with wisdom and compassion. I try to get wisdom and compassion. I try to practice non-clinging, right? By going and washing the stickiness off my fingers continuously. It's a kind of non-clinging awareness as a washing obsession. You got some kind of stickiness on your fingers or something, and everything. You realize that this is right. So you go to kind of wash this because things just stick, right? And so we conceive of the practice of Dharma from this perspective of being a kind of a separate thing, right? And then we start to say, well, how do things work? And we feel ourselves driven. I'm talking, this is not a critique. This is actually a really wonderful early stage bodhisattva in process, right? I'm a thing and I'm curious how all these things work. Right? I want to know how it all works. And slowly you begin to kind of suspect that things are themselves manifestations of process. And there's a kind of a fluidity that's going on. And things become more kind of useful conventions. We begin to say, well, it's convenient to talk about myself as Tarchin, right? As opposed to Stephen, when I want to make the distinction. But when I feel the earth, the volcanic explosion in Tonga, 2,300 kilometers away, and I go for a moment, oh my God, we're like, actually, where's the separation? I mean, at that moment, I ran out of the house. First of all, I thought it was a big earthquake. The house shook. There was a smashing great explosion. And I went out ready for, rolling up the sleeves and going and putting out the neighbor's fire or something, or, you're all alert. It was as if it was right there. It was real. Right? And you go, goodness, we actually are interconnected. This ring of fire business and plate tectonics wasn't just something I read about in the textbooks. It suddenly has a kind of a vividness, an immediacy. And so we have first of all, there's a sense of being this lump, if you like. And then we begin to see how lumps are made of process. And we think that we've transcended this lump view, right? But actually what we've just done is refined the lump view. And so we have little lumps all dancing together, making up a process. Molecules, cells, tissues, organs, they're flowing. But if we were to see, but what's really going on here? Where do I begin? Where do I end off? Even this begins to slip away and tiny lumps find more process. Right? And we begin to see Dharma not so much as trying to trade in a preferred, a difficult lump for a more preferred lump, like me in a loving state rather than me in a miserable kind of grabby state. I found myself recently reviewing a number of texts that I've studied over the course of the years. And one of them that I've been it's been a pleasure to come back to is this one by Stephen Batchelor, right? Verses from the Center, right? And in it, he's giving his own commentary, which feels, in a way, I kind of really resonate with it because I feel a kind of an affinity with his approach. And he's making a commentary on Nagarjuna's very famous text on the middle way, on basically about this big, scary word, emptiness, shunyata. Okay. And when his translation is very kind of free translation, and I'm having a kind of a pleasure here of reading two other translations by scholars, David Kapalahana, I think his name is, and Jay Garfield. And so I'm reading each section simultaneously, like one, and then I'll go to the next and the next and next. It's kind of contemplating and just getting a kind of a feel. And the very first part, Stephen has had the confidence in his being to, in a sense, present the words of Nagarjuna in a very, very unconventional way. It's close to my heart. I'm quite used to I like this idea of having the confidence to express the traditional in unconventional ways. Okay? And at the very beginning, the very first verse is a kind of homage, to the Buddhas. And it's kind of very traditional, bowing to all the Buddhas and so on. And I've abstracted a tiny little bit from that one single verse. You can have a look at the verses from the center, a Buddhist vision of the sublime. Oh, I quite like that, right? The sublime, right? The sublime is both terrifying and wondrous. It's kind of absolutely impossible to stay away from, attractive, right? And at the same time, kind of terrifying because the ground is being pulled out from underneath you, the sublime, right? Great stuff, right? And so he said, I bow to all Buddhas. And absolutely unconventionally, he spelt Buddhas with a small b, right? I bow to all Buddhas who teach contingency and ease fixation. I bow to all Buddhas who teach contingency, interdependency, right? And ease fixation. And imagine for a moment, right, that the reason why, if he said all Buddhas as a capital B, then he's probably referring to a whole bunch of amazing people who had achieved Buddhahood. It's that they worked their way up through the ranks and eventually they got Buddha, like general, 5-star general. But he didn't. He said small b Buddha. So obviously he's not talking about some specific Buddha. He's maybe talking about, right? When you asked that question a few moments ago, or did I ask it? What on earth is going on, right, in this life that I am living? And you see this kind of extraordinary budding of collaborations at multiple levels and domains, right? This flowering, this buddha-ha-ha-ha-ing, right? And that buddha-ha-ha-ha-ing that we are is teaching us contingency, interdependency. If we really shut our eyes and refuse to engage, we might be able to say, no, I'm the chief lump, or I'm a little lump and I want to become a big lump. But if we start to look at all, we begin to recognize that in some kind of absolutely sublime, ungraspable, inconceivable way, we are all in this together. And it's very nice to have texts that lay it out. There's this, and there's 6 of this, and 8 of that, and 16 of that, and 52 of that. And it's like all nice and kind of lumps, packages. But the reality that we're living isn't like that. And we live with this huge unknown, right? I bow to, I give all my attention to Buddhas who teach contingency. Buddhas are the teaching of contingency. And the teaching of contingency is the opening of appreciation for interconnectedness, this dancing, right? This processing, myriad levels. And ease, fixation. I really love that phrase. He didn't say get rid of clinging, bachelor. He said ease fixation. Can you guess that? Have you ever had a kind of an old door where the hinges have got a bit rusty and it won't open? We used to talk about, maybe the language is still used, but I don't hear it so often these days. You would ease the lock, or you would ease the door. It's kind of like you help it open. You don't just blow it up. You don't get a saw and cut it down, but you kind of, maybe a little Dharma CRC, kind of a universal rust softener, right? We ease fixation. Okay? And the difficulty is that like the fixations that we have, do you have any fixations? Have you ever noticed that? I mean, in the past, now you're liberated, you don't have any fixations, but in the past, can you recall any fixations that are going on? Okay. There's not too many fixations going on around the world in the name of COVID vaccines these days, are there? Right? Fixation. I think this is a lot better than non-clinging. Like non-clinging sounds like, Rinpoche, Namgyal Rinpoche once made this kind of story for us. I don't know where he got it from, but he told us the story of Prince Sticky Fingers. And Prince Sticky Fingers had, he was a great bodhisattva, and he was Prince Sticky Fingers on the path. And he saw the monster of clinging and all that. And so he's going to get rid of it. He said, take that. And he bams his fist into the monster and it sticks. And then he take that, and he bangs his other fist in and it sticks. And then he kicks the monster and it sticks. And he kicks the monster with the other leg and he sticks and headbutts the monster, right? And so he's completely stuck. And then the monster burps and swallows him. Right? It's kind of like, a lot of people, how can I deal with my clinging, my addiction, addictions, my clingings, right? We're ashamed of our clingings, right? We're afraid of our clingings. We lust and delight in our clingings, right? It's amazing. We're not so sure about this giving up all clinging. Giving up all clinging would also seem to mean, in a sense, releasing this kind of obsession to control. I understand that I have cancer cells growing in my body, and I don't have a clue how to control them. Okay. So I'm doomed to total misery, right? Because I can't control the universe. Living with wisdom, compassion, and non-clinging engagement. In kind of traditional Buddhist teaching, we come across the idea of a gradual path, and sometimes contrasting that with what's sometimes called the kind of instantaneous path. Okay? I sometimes think of it as the already present path. It's a kind of it's a natural presence, a continual natural presence. This is it. Right? And when we come to Dharma, we approach Dharma in, how can I put this? My sense is that many of you have been involved with Dharma work for decades, right? Can probably look back at the way you approach the teaching in your earliest memories and approach the practices and so forth. And you can see that something's changed. Yes? Anything changed? Or is it exactly that you're still hammering away at the same old thing? Right? Your sense, it's a very strange thing to say. And if I say this to people who just show up brand new, just beginning to question what on earth is going on, it might be sort of a little bit off-putting. They might run off and find some other teacher, gives them a better answer. Right? But in a way, we could say that what most people call the practice of Dharma is actually a living exploration of what on earth meditation and living is actually about. Like, you can't meditate until you know what meditation is. I mean, if you're a lump, so that I can sit over here and I can watch my breath over there, and I could be a kind of a tax accountant meditator, right? So I would count my breaths, right? And then I would file them in files of long and short and, right, jiggly and smooth and so on. I put them in different kind of categories. And when I lose my breathing and don't pay attention to it, I can get frustrated with myself. And when I can glue myself to the breath, I can feel I'm doing great progress. And meanwhile, all hell's breaking out on the streets, and all craziness is going on with climate disruption and pandemics and so on. And I'm busy kind of counting my breath in some strange idea that this is the most profound thing that I can do. Maybe we could say that Dharma, here's a new definition. Dharma is the most profound thing that you can engage with. And so over the course of our life, of course, our sense of what profound engagement consists of for us will mature, will grow, will flower, right? And so what we call a gradual path is not so much like everyone has to walk this kind of step 1, step 2, and then you get to finally Mahamudra and Dzogchen and emptiness and non-clinging engagement, or whatever you want to call it, right? It's not that. It's just that is the way it looks when you look back on it afterwards and describe what you did. Right? You're kind of gradually accumulating some confidence and competence in living a life of contingency and a kind of easing of fixation. Okay? Maybe the life of contingency is the wisdom aspect. Okay? It's kind of, there's some, without trying to do a prajna paramita and a kind of ultimate wisdom and emptiness and so on. Wisdom is knowledge, is curiosity, it's investigation, it's engagement, it's, right, this aspect of it, right? And so we are, at the beginning, you see, we look at contingency from a utilitarian perspective. We want to understand how it all works so that we can control it, so that we can fix it. Okay? I mean, I keep on coming back to incredibly simple things. You know, I'll be sitting there and I'll be looking at a piece of skin on what you traditionally call my body, my own body, right? And I'll kind of touch it and look at it, and my skin's doing weird things now. You know, it's different skin than when I was 5 years old. It's incredible, right? It's got spots all over it, and flaky bits, and wrinkle bits, and red spots, and white spots, and black spots, and brown spots, and itchy bits, and it's kind of all, it's quite incredible, right? And I was kind of looking at it and just contemplating that from a lump perspective, right? The atoms that made up all these kind of spots on my skin were once inside a star. And I mean, it's so simple. This is not new. I mean, I've been talking about this for decades. So if you do daily puja, you know, the one that I put out years ago, and right, this body of mine is composed of atoms born in stars. It's that old stuff. Tarjan, when are you going to move on to something new? But just to actually feel this, the implications of this. We're on this incredible journey. What on earth is going on? I'd like to share with you another book that I've rediscovered. And I think it's a really beautiful text. And if enough of you found it interesting to kind of engage with it, we might find ourselves coming back to it again and again over our times together this year. And it's a book that was titled The Heart of the Matter. See, not, wow, it's not a big tome. How great. And it's by a Tibetan yogi who I probably can't pronounce properly, Fela Natsok Rangdrol. Right? And it is an absolute simple, stripped down pith instruction reminder, if you like, right? Right, we're constantly walking this gradual path, right? Until suddenly, bang, we realize that the universe, I'm not walking anywhere. Have you ever noticed this? You know, are you walking down to the garden, or are you walking to the shops, or are you growing your way to the shops? After all, you're a transformed being by the time you get there. You're not the same being who left. So you can't say you walk to the shop, because you kind of walk away from yourself. You're right. And imagine for a moment the possibility. For some people, this is just pie in the sky fantasy. But imagine for a moment just releasing into the fullness that you actually are, moment by moment. And you realize that if you were actually to take a biological perspective, and you actually took to heart that biology is in a constant state of evolution, it's a process of evolution. And we might come across something, I just jotted down a statement from a biologist, Ernest Mayr, and he said, uniqueness is the outstanding characteristic of any event in evolutionary history. Uniqueness is the outstanding characteristic of any event. An event is a creature. An event is a plant. An event is you. An event is me. Right? Behind the lump is process, eventing. Right? And when you think about it, we talk about, oh, humans doing this, or pests doing that, or so on. But actually, every single creature is unique. And yet we rarely actually enter into, and I myself am unique moment by moment by moment by moment. Contingency. Could I ease fixation and enter into this ever fresh uniqueness? And what would it mean to do that? How might I engage? Just consider for a moment that this is not a kind of a presentation of something that you should do, but it's an invitation to join me in stepping into the unknown. And like holding this question, like, how do you live this way? And it seems like a lot of opinions that I have, oh, not good, don't like that, don't like that. Oh, I like that. Ooh, more of this, right? A lot of that seems to do with fixation. Seems to. And a lot of that seems to do, and it seems that fixation has something to do with a diminished appreciation of contingency. You know, I mean, this found, imagine for a moment, you know, if you go to the great Lama and you say, well, could you give me the pith instructions, And the Lama said something like, yeah, live doing the best that you can. You go, what? Anyone could say that, right? But in a sense, bringing all our best qualities to this mystery of, you know, on one hand, I feel like I'm a being. And on the other hand, increasingly, I have a sense of conviction, of connectedness with others. And the proof of that, the thing that increases my sense of conviction, is increasing sense of being in tune with what's going on. Right? There's a kind of an attunement. Right? And so we flow in a way, right? How do I flow into this thing called death and dying in a way that's beautifully in tune? How do I flow with climate disruption or breakdown of civil discourse or, right, whatever kind of huge thing is facing us, right? So that there is love, so that there's interest, so that there's engagement. I'd like to just pause for a moment. This is just all I'm trying to do is maybe say something about the title of our gatherings: Living with Wisdom, Compassion, and Non-Clinging Engagement. The heart of Dharma from a universal perspective. Stephen, are there any of these things in the chat that I should have paid attention to? No. So we're just pausing here. I'm going to keep this a little bit shorter than I sometimes go for, both for energy and so forth. And I get kind of square-eyed out with the screen, if you don't mind, and you probably do too, right? But I'd like to just pause for a moment and see if anyone would like to either raise a question, not necessarily that I'm going to charge off and respond to that question right now, but to share an observation or anything at this point, just an attempt to try and join us a little bit more. You know, maybe we all have to go off with Mark Zuckerberg and join the metaverse or whatever it's called, and you know, and then we can all gather together and replace living. And this is a really kind of bitsy replacement for living, but we're doing the best we can. So I've been yakking away here, talking into empty space. I look at some of you pictures, like it's kind of, you know, whoever I can more clearly, if I can more clearly see your face, I tend to look at your picture more. Right? And it's probably just entirely because of the nature of the screen and the technology. Because I prefer to, I do talk to humans. I talk to the cat too, you know, but I talk sort of mammal language with cat. Are there any questions or observations? And Stephen can perhaps facilitate this unmuting or what have you. Sure.
I was gonna let you know that there's one.
Yeah.
Karen has a question.
Karen?
Go ahead and unmute.
I don't know where you are, Karen. I go, Karen, I should.
I'm here.
I hear you. I hear you, but I don't see you. Oh yeah, now I know which Karen too. The unmistakable laugh. Okay, gotcha. Karen, go ahead.
Okay, Rob's here with me too.
I still can't find you. Oh, there you are. Okay, now I got you. You're in the upper
Okay.
left corner.
Well, this is apropos. I found myself drawn to the television, which, as many people know, I don't actually watch TV. And but I was concerned about what was going on in Ottawa and along our borders. And unbeknownst to many people, I actually am very proud Canadian. And non-clinging engagement, in terms of, I saw myself being, people might find this disturbing, but I actually found a relief that the police took control of the streets. And it's so, you know, out of, you know, the realm, I would say, of, you know, regular Dharma practice and engagement. But, you know, it's intersecting what's going on, and in a big way, I think.
It reveals, it's like these intense situations reveal to us, to ourselves, you know, levels of conviction, confidence. That's what you operate from, right? Right? But from a I mean, it's all very well to talk about suchness and Mahamudra and so on a sunny day, right? But there's to ease fixation, not just fixation with preference of negative, you know, things, but also preference of positive things, right? It's an unbelievably tall order. The idea of universal loving kindness is way bigger than we think of on sunny days. And it's on the non-sunny days that we realize, this is my age. This is my, you know, it's like for me, cancer I'm kind of not so much right now because I've been living with it for so many years, but in the early stages of it, the first few years, I constantly caught myself with you know, attitudes and opinions and so on, which I didn't think I had going for me, clingings, right? And the thing, and it was like this, it becomes beautiful Dharma practice when we go, thank you. And we got this, and it kind of reveals my working age, and a deepening can come. And so what you're observing is like, it's like to be I mean, we can't be ashamed of our unfolding. You know what I mean? There's no shame in
Yeah.
unfolding. There's no shame in
Yeah.
not unfolding either, right? But definitely, you know, if we're shame is a fixation which definitely needs to be eased before we can even get close to Mahamudra. But having said that, please continue. Like if you, yeah, it's a big thing. It's a big thing, right? I mean, we most of us are extremely privileged, right? Proof of the pudding is that we're engaging in this Zoom meeting right now. In order to do that, we've bought equipment and computers, and there's lots of people who don't do that. They couldn't do that. Impossible to do that. We're extremely privileged. And when you have, it's very easy to be generous when you're wealthy. You know, like, oh, you know, I'm feeling really good, and may all beings be well and happy, and I share the merit, you know, and I'm really beaming. And it's not to say that's not genuine, right? But the flip side of that is that when you've got nothing to lose, you're not afraid of losing it. But when you've got everything to lose, and then all of a sudden you're facing with losing it, then how do we deal with that? It's not so simple. It's not a matter of just of, well, I won't do anything. It's the you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't situation. It's mission impossible. Dharma, Mahamudra in the living world is mission impossible. And so I think it's not like dismissing it. That's the end of it. That now we can just go on with our suffering. Now we know it's mission impossible. But it's like, for me, the recognition that it's mission impossible somehow is part of what keeps me at it. And it's kind of like you kind of learn to act and do when you can do, and to go in the flow of wonderment when no action that you can do seems to be worth doing. You know, like you just, so sometimes we engage and sometimes we rest. And being in tune with that, so that when our engagement, we engage, it's worth engaging. It's uplifting for ourselves. It's uplifting to feel in control. And so, you know, it's a kind of, they say the famous proverbial slippery slope. You know, so you go, oh well, let's move in, and we have to use some force and get these demonstrators off the street. And then gradually, you know, the country that you are proud to be part of, which is a kind of a fixation, maybe a positive fixation. It's kind of ease the fixation a bit. It seems a bit idiotic in my mind to be proud of being a manifestation of suchness. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. But anything smaller than that, you know, it's like I'm a proud Canadian or I'm a proud Kiwi. You know, I'm ashamed of my white European ancestry in the face of colonization and kind of racial disparity of opportunity and so on. I mean, you've got all these are all fixations, right? But you see, in the dance of suchness, you know, if you're viewed with the eyes of thingness, right, we see a continual streaming of things coming into being and passing away, birthing and dying. There's no shame in that. Right? And what's maturing is something which is like, you can't say it's love that's maturing or it's wisdom that's maturing. It's these are trite words when we get to this. There's something of our, you know, the heart of Dharma. You know, we can, you know, our heart can be broken open You know, like it's like it can be, it can open, it can feel broken open. You know, it's like, how do we, there's something there. Okay? And so there's a kind of a gentleness with the work. Let me stop and then pass it back to you or to anyone else, right? Yeah, it's like what you're pointing your finger at is not, I'm spending a bit more time with this because it's not just you. There's lots of people in the world, lots of us, lots of people who are participating in this could feel reverberations of a similar thing.
Yes.
You know?
Mhm.
You know?
Like the volcano.
I mean, they're talking about, you know, people say, we want our freedom, you know, and you go, well, you know, and in New Zealand, they've got this going, you know, there's people saying, oh, we should have Nuremberg-like trials and Jacinta Ardern should be on trial. And, you know, I mean, it's like, you know, you go, well, you know, well, you're able to actually protest and say these things. You're able to go and compare it to people who can't do any of this. You still have a healthcare system. You still have it's, you know, it's tottering along, it's falling apart, but we've still got this. Mary got a hip replacement, right? In the midst of it all, you know, we're tottering on, you know, like I'm still tottering on. How incredible, you know? And this idea that freedom, when we're saying we want our freedom, it's coming from the person who is believing that they are actually being controlled by others instead of realizing that they are participants, they are manifestations of suchness, co-creating a universe with everyone else, right? There's different levels of freedom.
Yes.
And so we say, well, we have to be willing to give up certain freedoms in order to have security. Yeah, I mean, that may be true and it may not be true, but it's got nothing to do with the Vimutti Magga. Right? You know, the Visuddhimagga is the path of purification. The Vimutti Magga was the path of freedom. The freedom that was being hinted at there, a whole different kettle of fish, right? Yes. Is that it? I'm going to go to another question, Karen.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
The Queenstown Dharma Center is next.
Queenstown Dharma Center, where are you? Oops, I don't know how to do this now.
Hello, Tarchin. It's Nikki behind the mask.
Oh, okay, here we are. Can you try and speak a little bit louder? I've got you now on my screen. Not only are you behind a mask, but you're in a kind of an IT fog. It's not the clearest picture.
Can you hear me
Hello.
better now? That's great. Thank you. I just wanted to comment on your comments about the atoms coloring and itching and dancing on your skin. Because all this week I've been contemplating when we talk about me and I, well, which one is it? Is it the one today at 72, or is me the one at 43, or the one at 12? Or so I've been really noticing what you were talking about with the changes in your skin. And I just wanted to share that reflection with you.
I mean, maybe there's, you know, I mean, consider the possibility that you don't have many me's, you just have one me. That's me, right? And when I say I've got the me at 42 instead of the me today at 72, what I'm really saying is that the me today at 72 is having the experience of a memory, right? Of a feeling of being someone at 42. But this is like, you exist in the living that you're doing. This is kind of an unbelievably radical idea for people. We think we exist and then we do our living. You know, like, oh, I exist and now I'm going to do this kind of living or that kind of living. But actually we exist in the living that we are. This kind of, it's radical presence. And I'm not saying you should try and convince yourself of this intellectually, but I'm just saying that it can be a useful koan thought, if you like, to gently hold, that there is radical presence, and in a sense, it's unique, it's unique, it's unique, it's unique, it's unique, it's unique, right? And you can see that we invent, if you like, a universe of categories, right? And I might actually devote a whole class to this a little bit later, but you know, we talk about the three natures sometimes, and the first one is called parikalpita, and it's like the illusory like nature, right? This is the world of lumps and things, right? That's there, and there, if you look at them, you see they're all categories. You know, we talk about a human body, and yet actually each human body is totally unique. We talk about cells, and yet each cell is unique, right? But after a while, we forget about the uniqueness that is the real living that's going on, and we devote ourselves to trying to sort out the problems of living in terms of categories. Okay? So it's a kind of an interesting, this idea of radical presence. And that there is this me, and that doesn't diminish your question. The question is like a really interesting question. I'm just trying to extend it, right? The possibility that this sense of me-ness only exists in this unique present moment, right? And that when I refer to a me of yesterday or a me of last year, that is some kind of configuration of experiencing which is happening right now in my physiology. Your neurons have to work in a certain way. Your juices, your hormones, your muscles, your heart, your everything has to work in a certain way for you to have a memory of you at 42. And it works differently when you have a memory of you at 32.
Thank you. I guess what fascinated me was this impermanence, this continual evolvement through the journey. And you can't really put your finger on any one time when you were you, because you've already changed by then, by even the time you think about it. So it's just been a fascinating week of just watching the changes and understanding them as they evolve.
We might even get to a point where it's not so much that you see that there is no you, but that the idea of me is not as useful a concept as it used to be.
Yes, it might be the first step on that path.
And we find ourselves engaging, you know, non-clinging engagement. Who is engaging? Okay. Anyway,
Thank you,
good. Thank you for
Tarjan.
that. Yeah. Was there
One last question from Catherine Shane.
Catherine Shane?
No, it's me who asked the question,
Oh, Bill.
Tarjan.
Oh, hello, Bill. Hello, Catherine.
Tarjan, the idea of just to ease fixation. I find like to replace that from non-clinging awareness, the notion of awareness, in my own experience, I've been dominated. I've been in my head a lot through my life, you know, and so to actually, the notion of to ease fixation really brings it into the body for me in a really lovely way. And it's really interesting. What arose in my mind was that, you know, as you engage with contingency and ease fixation, as you do that, the whole kind of felt kinesthetic sense of flowing with the situation and with love and compassion and kind of forgiveness, or, well, you know, just the meta, that is such a, in terms of unfolding a life, the learning associated with that is huge for me. And I just think that, and even in terms of when you relate it, say, to the diamond in the lotus, like the awareness and the felt kinesthetic sense and the softness that is implicit with easing fixation is real. I think it's awesome. Thank you.
I think your friends will call it an end right now for this session. And if I can get rid of Bill and Catherine and go back to gallery view. Thank you. We have, I was going to do this at the beginning, and somehow it sort of slipped by. And I would just like to, anyway, do this at the end. Most of you can see many pictures on your screen, or if you go to gallery view right now, so you can sort of see everybody. Right. And I need 2 pages to see you all, so I still can't see you all. But I just like to acknowledge how we are really wrapped around this globe. And we have some people from Brazil. And so with the people from Brazil, just wave like mad. So that, and then everyone can see, oh, they're from Brazil, right? Right. And we've got people from Canada. You can wave like mad from Canada. Right. That's it. And we've got people from America, United States of America, right? Right. So we got there. No, we've got people there. And we've got Australians. Hey, and we've got people from Europe. Yeah. Hey. Right. And I wish I could say we got people from Antarctica, but I'm not sure that we do. Sorry? Yeah. By the power of these wholesome activities, may our lives be rich with awakening. Living thus, may we abandon all unwholesomeness. Through the endless mystery of birth, illness, old age, and death, may we help all beings to realize their true interbeing, interknowing nature. Sarvamangalam, Sarvamangalam, Sarvamangalam. May you all be well, wherever you are, however you are, whatever the political situation is, whatever the social situation is, right? Whatever your health situation is, right? May you find wellness in the flow of what's happening. Until next time, sadhu.